Okay, brace yourself. How hungry are you? If your mouth is watering while you're looking at this slide, I bet you're thinking, is that a pulled pig sandwich or a pulled pork sandwich? And what's the difference? Well, you found the right video. This video is going to help you understand where the name of the food that's on your plate comes from. So it goes way back to England. Let's go back to England. The year's 1066. What were you guys doing in 1066? Black Abyss. You don't know. You have no idea what was happening. But in England, there was a battle for who was going to be the king. Somebody from Norway wanted it. Somebody from England wanted it. And some cousin from France wanted it. His name was William. And so there was an epic battle of who would be the next king of England. On your screen there, you see the flag for England. Now, when you think of England today, you don't typically think of this flag. That's because you're most likely thinking of the British flag or the Union Jack, which is a combination of all these flags you see on your screen now. England, Scotland, Ireland, morphed all together gives us this British flag. But England is at the heart of what the British were and are. So let's get back to this story. The French guy who came over, his name was William the Conqueror. He's actually going to win. He's going to defeat the guy who wanted to be the British king, or king of England, and that guy from England will be killed. William the Conqueror will come over in 1066, invade England, and bring with him the French nobles. They will then be the upper class in England. There's always been a little bit of tension between the English and the French. They're kind of like cousins that never quite really got along. So when William the Conqueror comes over, he establishes the French as the monarch or the royal family in England and still in France as well. And so with him, he brings all of these nobles, and they get all the good stuff in life. And the peasants, the English peasants that were conquered, they're still stuck working in the fields, hunting for the rich people, and they have a terrible life. Try to imagine a world where everybody's dirty, your teeth are falling out, you're probably covered with bugs, nobody's clean. It's probably terrible. So what do these guys, the English peasants, have to do with this? Right, this is a cheeseburger, right? But if we were just giving it a general name, we would say this is beef. But these guys, the English peasants, they would not speak French. So beef is more of a French word. They would never have the opportunity to actually eat the cow that they raise in the field. They would raise it, but they would never eat it. They have a terrible life. So when you see the animal in the field where the peasants would see it, it would be referred to as a cow, which is a British word or an English word. However, when the nobles got it, they would use their French word for it. And so the French word that we use even today has been anglicized or kind of morphed into English for beef. So it's beef when it's on your plate because you're a French noble, but it's cow when you see it in the field because that's where the peasants worked with it, raised it, but never could eat it. They weren't allowed, didn't have enough money to ever eat the cow. Only the French nobles ate the beef. Same thing with the pig. We don't call it a pulled pig sandwich, we call it a pulled pork sandwich. So again, the peasants, when they see the animal in the field, they call it a pig. But when it made it to the plates of the nobles, it became pork. So today, when you see pig on a plate in a restaurant or in your house, you refer to it as pork, but in the field, it's pig. A few other examples would be, say, mutton. It's also known as lamb. So the French word for sheep would be mutton. Sometimes sheep meat on a plate is often referred to as lamb, like lamb chops. Lamb generally is like a younger animal. Mutton is a little bit older of an animal. But generally in a fancy restaurant, it would be referred to as mutton on the menu because that's French. I would advise you not to order mutton chops because that's what this is. So maybe you're going to grow these out and get your own mutton chops. But mutton is sheep or lamb. If you want the chops, you might want to refer to it as lamb chops because they're from a younger animal and perhaps a little more tender. Some people ask about what about poultry and chickens? Well, this is a relatively new invention in the history of humanity, being able to afford and eat poultry. So there's really not a lot of people, even the wealthy back 1,000 years ago, eating chickens. But poultry is based on, the word poultry is based on a French word. What about horses? What? People eat horses? Well, the French do, but for some reason there was a kind of a negative attitude towards eating these horses, so they were not brought over to England. But if you were to go to France and you're walking around Paris, if you saw a restaurant like this with a golden horse head outside, you knew, and you know even today, that that restaurant serves horse meat. It never really caught on in England, perhaps because of all the thousands of years of being a companion animal rather than more of a kind of a traditional food source. But France, some places around France, they eat it. Never really made it to England. So we can thank William the Conqueror next time we have a food on our plate when we refer to it as beef, pork, or mutton on our plate when we're eating it. But when we drive down the road and we see it in a field, it's a cow and a pig and a lamb or sheep.